Well, people are still pouring in, but a very warm welcome to this Q&A. I'm Eleanor Dare. I'm the convener of the school, but we're really blessed to have Sophie Fordham and Karen Herbane, my colleagues from Cambridge Digital Humanities, who are here to help answer questions and support this Q&A session. So I'm going to do a really short presentation. I think that might answer some of the questions, but fear not, we'll have time to have a really good Q&A session with you with your questions directly. But let me just slowly start to share a sort of an overview of what it is we're doing. Let me just find my presentation there. I hope you can all see that. So my colleagues will help if you have questions or anything you want to say. I might not see because I've got this now filling up my window, but they'll let me know if there are urgent questions. But we will have a Q&A right very, very, very soon. So welcome. This is particularly about the Cambridge Cultural Heritage Data School, 13th to 17th of April on campus in Cambridge. But you could ask other questions about other schools if you wish, because we have a number of different data schools going on throughout the year. So I'm going to talk about the curriculum, the fees and concessions, some of the staff based in Cambridge, and then some of our guest lecturers. Some preparation if you do decide to do the school, which I would love if you do. What might you prepare? What kind of things might you do? As well as something about the equipment or software we might be using, how to join the mailing list for Cambridge Digital Humanities, a little bit of information about accommodation, pointing you to the terms and conditions for the school, and of course questions. So we ran a school in April, very successful, September, the Social Data School, but the Cultural Heritage Data School is quite different. I'm going to talk about a little bit about the curriculum. It's really about engaging people with cultural heritage data and how can we do this, and we'll have a number of different guest lecturers and my own lectures. I make games as well as interactive experiences, and we'll have workshops that address a number of different ways in which we can engage people with all sorts of cultural heritage data, whether it's images or texts or objects or places or sounds. There are many different types of data or objects, depends how you frame it, that we might want to invent activities, games, walks, performances, all sorts of things, a really rich and varied array of different approaches, which reflect the diversity of the people who'll be teaching on this course, as well as people who'll be taking part. We will publish this module detailed timetable very soon, but it's all prepared and all the staff who are going to teach it are organised. So we'll also have every morning a practice session. So there are times when you'll be timetabled, if you look at this, to do group work. Each school, we have small groups in which people develop a project together by negotiation with support from us, often with toolkits to support that. But we'll also have times for you to practice the skills and ideas that we introduce you to, or maybe the things you already know, which will be strengthening and giving you opportunities to think of different ways to engage audiences, to engage researchers, to engage audiences in museums and galleries, libraries, archives, all sorts of places. Of course, you can ask questions about this when we have the Q&A session very shortly. The fees and concessions, this is all online, but the standard fee is £750, and we're offering at the moment this early bird, which ends on the 23rd of November, so that's £695, and then there are limited concessions, which are £460 per person, and 2 free bursaries. They'll go very quickly, and they're really for exceptional candidates who evidence how they'll benefit from the course, but also perhaps why we need to support them, and how they'll be able to extend what they've learnt and spread what they've learnt with other people, which is an important aspect to the school. But you can read more about that, and we can answer questions at the end. So they are limited, these concessions, but the standard fee, we think it's excellent value for money. There's a lot of contact time in this school. That's £750 with the early bird by the 23rd of November. So the Cambridge-based staff, there's me, But there's also my wonderful colleagues, Jonathan Blaney, who's our research software engineer. He'll support you. He'll be on hand for some of the sessions, but he'll also do a talk about how to solve problems, which is a really brilliant contribution to the school. Then there's my colleague Andy Corrigan, who's one of the librarians in the digital library, and he's going to do a really interesting session about finding images. It's got this exciting title, if we go back here. It's called, hang on, where we got it. It's called Incidental Poker, Practical Co-Design and Engagement Through Hybrid Walking Methodologies. Andy's research is really fascinating, and he's done work with constables' paintings, Walking with Constables, one of the research projects that he'll talk about. So I'm really looking forward to that session. And then there's my sessions, which will be about methodologies for engaging audiences, and I'll also reflect on my own practice as a games developer. I've made a number of different games with cultural heritage data, but they were also participatory, co-designed, often with children, and I'll talk about some of those strategies, as well as introducing you by practice to developing games which you find interesting and which will be engaging for people you work with. And then there's Abdul Hassan Safir. Safir is a PhD researcher, a very talented Gates scholar, and he'll do a really interesting workshop on what he discovered when he looked at generative AI and the limits of its ability to represent. So that'll be a hands-on workshop, but you'll also find out more about Safir's very, very interesting research and his approaches. Then we'll also have guest lecturers such as Jack Hardiker-Bresson from the Royal College of Art. Jack runs the Office of Everyone, as well as being a teacher at the Royal College of Art. He's done some amazing projects with AR, but also with analog technologies, with paper, and we'll discuss the affordances between using really advanced technologies, but also what's available to us right now, right what we have in our pockets even, to create interesting work. Then Dylan Yamada Rice, my colleague, who I've done a lot of games design with and a lot of interactive design with. She'll be running the keynote as well as doing a hands-on workshop, which should be really, really interesting. If you want to explore her work, she's really brilliant at documenting it with a great website which you can follow up if you're interested. And then Harsha Balasubramaniam will be talking about her work with audio description and rethinking, particularly VR design, which is some of her research at Microsoft Research, as well as you might like to listen to Harsha's podcast about ways of not seeing. She's a really, really interesting anthropologist and hands-on designer developer. So what might you do to prepare? I think above all, think about the games and experiences you've had which you found engaging and compelling, and why, and what are their limits and technological affordances. Were they complex? Were they simple? They don't have to be complex to be engaging or compelling. Really think about what it is that's engaged you about cultural heritage data. You might want to look at this really great Open University course, which some of my colleagues such as Hugo Leal and Anne Alexander developed for the Open University. They're a good introduction to digital humanities. They're not about engaging audiences, but they'll show you some of the techniques which really are very representative of digital humanities research. But you don't have to do anything in particular to prepare. We'll distribute the software or equipment requirements. Really, you will need a laptop because we're going to be doing a lot of things like using games, Blender to get photogrammetry scans and optimize them and make environments with them. We'll be using things like Twine to plan interactive stories. We might do some sound editing using something like Reaper, for example. So we'll provide you with a list of completely free technologies that you can use. We'll only be using free versions. We don't require any expensive technology, but it would be good if you bring a laptop, and preferably a mouse with a wheel will be a really great advantage, particularly for 3D development work. We don't assume any prior experience. Some of you will, some of you won't. We start from a level playing field, we hope. It's not about technological proficiency. It's about your imagination, what you bring to this and your understanding. We'll provide paper and pens and plasticine and all sorts of materials that will be useful for us. This list will be distributed when you sign up, if you sign up for the course. I also really would love to encourage you to sign up for the CDH mailing list. That's Cambridge Digital Humanities. If you look at the website, you'll see the link to signing up for it, and you'll get really interesting notices about meetings, about talks, about events, and about the upcoming Cambridge Festival. So I hope you might consider doing that. Accommodation. We don't provide accommodation, but we are able to point you in direction of places like Selwyn College, which is very close to where the data school is taught. And you know, in September, this is the people from the social data school dining in Selwyn College. It was a really special part of the experience to stay on a campus like this, but there's lots and lots of accommodation in Cambridge, and you'll be able to find accommodation for sure at a range of different prices. But Selwyn's an exciting place to stay. The terms and conditions, I won't read them out, I won't bore you with them, but of course there are terms and conditions, so make sure you check them once you've decided whether you're going to take part in the school. So I'm going to stop sharing that and actually go back to you. Sorry, it's a bit of a rush. But are there any questions that anyone would like to ask? Anything that wasn't clear or you'd like me to repeat, or something I haven't mentioned? Okay, Liliana, let me see. So is that in the chat? Are participants able to speak, or do I have to read the chat? Sorry, I wasn't quite...
So if you have a question, you have to post it in the Q&A.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. Yeah, great. Thank you, Sophie. So yeah, write any questions in the Q&A and we shall answer them. So Liliana, I can see you have your hand up. Hope you'll be able to write that, probably writing that now. Any other questions? The website for Cambridge Digital Humanities Data Schools is pretty good. I think most questions are answered, so do look at that in your own time. It really covers everything. If you could have a good search and look at some of the other things that are going on. Let's see. Are there questions there? Okay, do I consider graffiti and street art as cultural heritage? I mean, I'm laughing because it's not really what I expected to answer as a question. I would expect to be answering questions about the operational details of the data school. So it's not really about my opinion or my research. Personally, I do indeed consider it cultural heritage and would welcome anyone who wants to explore graffiti as cultural heritage during the school. Absolutely. Sorry, it's a good question. Perhaps surprised me because I didn't expect it to be so specific, but absolutely that would be an amazing project, would be very interesting. You could use things like photogrammetry as well as some of the games development environments, paper games as well as digital games, all sorts of different ways graffiti could be part of the kind of things that we'll develop. Thank you. It's a really interesting question. Is that something you're particularly interested in, Liliana? Have a look. Yeah, amazing. That sounds fantastic. Yeah, absolutely. We'd welcome that. Good. So I think there's another question. Whoops. Would this, of course, allow us to explore how collection objects could be engaged with through VR? Yeah, I mean, of course it might do. The course, we're not specifically going to use virtual reality in the sense of headsets during the course, because it's just too complicated to do that. But if you wanted to we'll certainly be thinking about immersive technologies. I've developed lots of VR apps and experiences, as has Jack Hardiker, and Dylan and I have worked on virtual reality research for many years, so we can certainly address that. What will be useful is that we'll be doing photogrammetry, so we can show you by importing a photogrammetry scan into something like Unity or Blender, how you could then progress into making that into a virtual reality experience. I think we'll take it back to the position of what is an experience, what is immersive, which might open up some ideas beyond necessarily being defined by technologies, for example. So it's something Jack Hardiker will look at in detail. What does it mean to be immersed? Something I've done in my own research, a question I've asked many times. So it'll certainly be something we'll we'll be talking about. Yeah, that's a great question. Let me see. So any other questions? Let me
We've
see.
got another one in the chat actually from Semra.
Let me see. New comment.
She's just asking, can you please go into more detail on what optional practice and peer support entails?
Okay. Optional practice. I'm not familiar with that term. Do you mean we'll have an optional practice session between 9 and 10? Good question. Sorry, I understand it now. Every morning I'll be there during the data school to encourage people who want to practice some of the techniques we might have done in some of the workshops. There will be times when you're working in groups, and that's allocated to you as time to develop things and explore. But every time I've been taking part in a data school, I realize people want more time. So I've decided to open up 9 till 10 a.m. every morning of the data school. That's 5 hours where you can come and work on something. Whether it's writing a story that's interactive, or using Blender, or practicing photogrammetry, or thinking about audio description or audio walks, or any of the techniques and approaches we teach you. You can ask questions of me, but you've also got your group, and you might want to ask from your peers in the school who will have a vast range of different experiences to help you understand something, and you might be able to help other people to understand something. So peer support, if you're in a group of incredibly talented people, why not draw upon each other's experiences? Our thinking behind this construct of peer support, as well as the staff. You've got an amazing group of people to learn from, as in the other participants. So an excellent question. I hope that makes it clear. So that will be every day in the data school, opportunity to ask questions and to work on things. Thank you. Here's another question. Not sure if okay. Is it possible for me to be part of the school to learn more on this? I'm really looking forward to be part of this. So, I mean, the answer is, with anything that interests you, we want you to bring your interest to this school. So, for example, if you're interested in Naga culture, we're not teaching Naga culture for this school, but it's not a theme that's being formally taught. But there's scope for you in your group and in your own interest to look at the ideas and approaches, as well as some of the theories and practical experiments and processes, and think, how could I bring that to my own interest in Naga culture, my own work, my own collection, my own process, my own artistic practice, depending on who you are and what you're doing. Of course, we want the things we teach to be really useful for you to develop whatever it is you're interested in. So there's absolutely no prescribed themes that you have to obey or follow. We're going to introduce you to a whole range of different ideas, processes, possibilities, which we want you to then use in a way that is meaningful to you and makes sense to you and important to you. Hope that makes sense. Does that make sense? Okay. Hope you could hear me. Yeah. I'm really looking forward to learn. I'm really looking forward to learn from you to help grow my faith. Great. Thank you. Thank you very much. Sorry. It's one of my really awful catchphrases as a teacher. Does that make sense? I see a room full of students going, no. Yeah, no, it makes sense. Thank you.
Okay. Eleanor, we've got another couple of questions in the Q&A session.
Yeah, could you,
so do you want me to read them as well?
Yeah, thank you, Karen.
Excellent. So Olga has said, hello everyone, I'm Olga, an archivist and historian for the Italian Ministry of Culture. I'm interested in DH. I'd like to know if during the course we're going to discuss how to mix archives, DH and documents expositions in order to make them much more interesting for people.
That's a great question, Olga. Thank you. We certainly will be touching upon that. I mean, when you look at someone like Jack Hardaker and my own work, I've worked with archives. How do we bring them alive? Will be a huge question. In fact, Andy Corrigan's session will be specifically about archives of images, but they might be archives of documents. They might be archives even of objects. Absolutely. We really hope that we know this course is going to be of interest to people who might be working in libraries, in archives, in galleries, in theatres, who might be artistic practitioners, and you'll work out with your group what you bring to this and what you'd like to work on. So archives are an amazing source for many of us in Cambridge Digital Humanities and beyond to create really interesting, I say experiences, but you could call it something else, performances, walks, interactive experiences, games, all sorts of different ways. Thank you. It's a great question. Getting too excited now. Sylvia. Hi, Sylvia. It's good to see you in the group. Sorry, let me just make sure I'm reading the right question. A practical question. In the application process, there'll be a selection of participants by curriculum or experience. A really good question. How do we choose participants? We choose participants by really reading your application carefully and thinking, is this person going to, is our content a match to what they're interested in? So if someone applied and said they wanted to do, I don't know, advanced trigonometry, I would have to think, well, we're not doing that. That's not what the course is about, and I don't think we are a match to you. So it's not a matter of an applicant not being good enough for us. It's really, does the course match what this applicant says they're interested in? So that will be our priority. We have changed the way we're doing the application this year, so it will be a rolling application. So once places have run out, that will be it. So of course, that's the bottom line. Is there a place left? In which case, it doesn't matter what the application is. If the places are full, they're full, and you'll go on a waiting list. But up till that, I'm reading the applications and thinking, are we offering what that person's interested in? Does it make sense? Sometimes we think, well, maybe they're better off suited to a social data school or another thing. So that's what we're looking at as the match. Yeah, I mean, I suppose it's a combination of the curriculum. Does our curriculum tally with the interests someone has articulated? Is a question for me when I'm reviewing applications, for sure. Yeah, so what was the second part to your question? Let me just make sure I've got the first part. Second part, or experience. Yeah, experience is a good question as well. On the whole, we do want participants to be people who are in the GLAMA sector or have a coherent reason to be interested to be using cultural heritage data. So again, if you applied and you were an airline pilot, and who'd never worked with any data, with any cultural heritage data, and there was somebody else who was working with an archive, I would definitely be giving a precious place, prioritizing people who are working with cultural heritage data. So it's a mixture of our curriculum matching you, and in some ways your own experience matching our ideal cohort, which is very varied. Thank you. Again, I hope that makes sense. Okay, can you help us understand if the application is accepted? Sorry, can you help us understand if the application is selected first and intimated with candidate first before the, yeah. Is there any way to do projects with school to create digital archive of Naga cultural heritage in Naga? Okay, so there's two parts to that question. Once I've reviewed your application, consulted with colleagues, you will be offered a place. And then there's a deadline for payment, isn't there, Karen? And that's how that would work. Does that answer it? In terms of your second question about doing something about Nagaland, I don't quite understand that. I think earlier when I was addressing your interest in Naga culture, my answer is you absolutely bring what you're interested in and what you care about to the school. and find ways to perhaps take that interest home, or you might persuade your group to do a project about Nagaland, maybe not. But the idea is that those skills would be with you for the rest of your interest in them, and that you would use them for projects that you're really interested in. If there's a professional question about collaborating with Cambridge Digital Humanities, probably better idea to write to Cambridge Digital Humanities. You'll find our email on the website. And but obviously there are circumstances and criteria which we would do research with the group. Sounds interesting, certainly something we'll talk about in the Cultural Heritage Data School, but it's not really something I can answer right now if I've understood it. The question being, is there any possible way to do projects with the school to create digital archive of Naga cultural heritage in Nagaland, India? Off the top of my head, no, but work out ways through the skills that you experience on this course to do that. We hope definitely that would inspire and show different ways to do things. Certainly we can talk about what your interests are. The interests of people taking part are absolutely at the core of the school, so be plenty of time to discuss your ideas, and above all with other participants. What do they do? Maybe you'll meet other archivists, artists, gallerists, museum curators, all sorts of people who you can talk to. That's a really good part of the data school, is meeting other participants. Thank you. Yeah, sorry, what other questions are there? Okay,
yeah, I'll read some out there on the Q&A section for you.
Thanks
okay, so Olivia, sorry, my screen is just flashing up. I work predominantly on research projects and their outputs, for example, archaeological projects, and how to disseminate this data rather than physical objects. Would this course still be appropriate?
Yeah, I mean, thank you. Great question. Absolutely. There's so many different ways in which we can frame cultural heritage. So you may have data. Some people may have data which is in the form of spreadsheets, numerical data. Some people will have qualitative data. Some people will have objects or sounds or images. So absolutely, we won't be prescriptive about what form that data takes. And we'll be doing a little bit of analysis, just a bit through Python, to see how we can analyze rather more abstracted data sets, which might be in the form of databases, Excel spreadsheets, whether it's numeric or textual. But absolutely, that's a really important part, is understanding how to bring that into people's imaginations. How to bring that to people is a really big part of this. Yes, absolutely.
Perfect. Also, we've got another question from Semra. Will we be expected to stick to the groups that we are sorted into, or can we regroup later on?
You will be forbidden from ever meeting anyone outside of the group for the rest of your life. No, I'm joking. Well, I mean, the way we choose the groups is, last time for Social Data School, we looked at the group and I thought, well, we can't have a group that's only journalists. Let's make sure we have a mixture of people who are journalists, archivists, investigators, writers, filmmakers, and make it as diverse as possible in each group. So that was my thinking. But if you had a violent reaction or a strong passion to be in another group or with other people, of course we would talk about that, and you would not be forbidden. I was joking. You would not be forbidden to reform or create other groups. One of the joys of the data school is to see people connecting during the school, but then reconnecting and doing projects together outside of the Cambridge Data School. So absolutely, we would encourage you making connections with people. Networking is quite an important part of the school. I hope that makes sense. The grouping is only designed to be benign and helpful, and if it doesn't work, we absolutely encourage discussing it and working out better grouping. Thank you.
I think I'll just add to that. When I attended the last school, it's fabulous to see everybody working, and actually everybody chats across to each other, and it's so supportive to see the teams working together. It's wonderful. So there's absolutely lots of cross networking.
Thank you, Karen. Absolutely right. Joy to see everybody together.
I've got another question on the Q&A from Graham. Are the courses organised so that there is an output at the end that brings together a lot of the learning done?
Yeah, thank you. Brilliant question. I couldn't have written that better myself as an outcome. Yeah, absolutely. The whole point of the group work is that you try to bring together the skills where meaningful. Of course, not, there might be some things you decide you don't want to do as a group, but it's by negotiation. But the idea is to consolidate, if I may not sound too teacherly, the learning that's taken place and work out ways to apply it in practice for a particular output. A light touch output. We don't want anyone to get super stressed. But last time in the social data school, it was great to see the final projects reflecting the interests of the group, but also the skills and ideas and theories and approaches that we've discussed. Yeah, absolutely. That's a dream goal for the school. Thank you. I think there's some other ones. Will you introduce participants to open source 3D heritage repositories projects to create such and to creating such repositories and to questions concerning data preservation and the digitization of material artifacts? We will be using open source. In fact, Andy Corrigan's project is looking at a particular open source image thing, creating such repositories. We won't be teaching on how to create a repository. That's not part of this school, but we hope again, it might be something you can talk to with participants who have done such a thing. Data preservation and the digitization of material artifacts. That's not really the focus of this school. This school is about really ways to engage audiences, whoever they are, however you define them, with cultural heritage data. So there may be an element of preservation in that sense. We could be using photogrammetry, storytelling, sound recording, even a game in some ways could preserve aspects of cultural heritage through digitization. But it's not really about digitization in that sense that you articulate there. Think much more about storytelling, engagement, really broadening participation, those kind of keywords. You're right to think other data schools have addressed those kind of issues, but it's not really, as you describe it, the complete focus of this particular data school. Thank you. Any other questions? Anything else we haven't answered? Anything else? We do try to use open source technologies, platforms a lot, as much as we can. And, it's a small part of it. It's more about existing cultural heritage data and how you can take stories and engage people with it. Good question, though. I'm glad you asked it. I think great. Thank you, Thomas. A good question. Sorry if I've inverted your name there. I think a colleague of mine attended the online in a previous year. Is this still an option? We're not going to do this one online. It's too complicated, it's too hands-on. It would not work as an online data school. What we're doing is we're currently in a process of evolving new courses. So we'll probably do we're going to do a course online and a little bit on campus, mixed modality, on ways in which we can still teach critically in an age of AI. That's a new course, as well as we're in the process of developing some courses on Python, the Python programming language, which will be online. So there's a bit of a shift there. Some things online burn people out with exhaustion because they're far too complicated and intense. We think in trying to reproduce what we've done on campus, it wouldn't always work. So no, we're not offering this one online. It's too hands-on. Thank you. Okay, as a student of graphic design, what can I gain from attending the school? What should I expect my learning curve to be like? Thank you. It's a great question. I mean, I think graphic design would be an extremely valuable thing to quality and skill to bring to this. We're going to be doing all sorts of things, such as designing games with paper, designing all sorts of visual content as well as other types of content, also thinking about how visual content can be enjoyed by people who have visual disability. So I think that will be interesting with Harsha Balasubramanian's course module. So I think graphic skills would be amazingly useful, as they are for everything. I believe that sincerely as a former teacher at the Royal College of Art and as a fine artist, visual designer myself. I think it would be really useful for designing games too. So I think it would be an amazing skill for you to expand into different type of interactive practices. That's what I think you would get from this, as well as the group really valuing your amazing skill. How many days should a candidate be on campus for this course? Absolutely 5 intense days, which will sear themselves into your memory through exertion and pleasure and new learning curves and experiences. Learning curves, sorry, what was your learning curve? I didn't answer that one. I don't know what your learning curve will be like. I think it would be intense. I think it is for everybody, including us, to be honest. That's why it's a brilliant experience. Okay, looks like someone's popped a little advert in there, which I'm going to ignore.
Excellent. I'm just going to, Graham's asked a question, which I've just added in a comment on the Q&A. But he's just asked what's fill up over time as applications come in, or do you wait until the application deadline to assess them? But no, I've just mentioned no, they're on a rolling basis, so get them in quick, because once they go, they go.
Yeah, thank you. Great question. Thank you, Karen. Yeah, we're reviewing as we go along. First come, first serve, really. Well, talented most. The bursary, no. I mean, it's a great question. No, the bursaries will go really quickly. They'll go to only 2 people, 2 exceptional people who will evidence how their attendance on the course is going to benefit not just themselves, but a wider community, but also evidence really excellent work that they're doing. So they're really hard to get, the bursaries, I have to be honest. Likewise, the concessions, they're not just something people should automatically apply for. Therefore, not just for your benefit, but we would like to see evidence that you will, pay it forward, and not everyone can do that. The bursaries will go very quickly. I think one of them already has. Thank you. Yeah, so just to get back to the point about how many days, it's fully intense, full-time 5 days on campus from 10 till 5, but there is also one evening where we have a keynote lecture until 7:30, and then there's the optional 9 till 10 practice session every day, and then we'll have a meal at Selwyn College one evening as well till about 7:30. So it's really, really intense. It's not something you can drop in and out of. It's something you need to be on campus 5 days a week, fully participating. Yep. How much emphasis on theoretical approaches to interaction design will there be relative to Yeah, good question. Not much. I mean, most of us are practitioners who are teaching on this course, so it will be 90% by practice. But having said that, as a very, very serious by practice researcher, theory will be entangled with those practices. They're inseparable. The way we practice is also theoretical. There's a theorization even in the way we approach materials. So it will be there, and we'll provide links to papers you might want to read if you're interested, but it's really very, very hands-on, very pragmatic. But all of us have theoretical positions, and all of us are researchers who write a lot. I'm currently writing a book about research methods by practice, as an artist, as a researcher, as someone who does a lot of interaction design and games design. That is a theory, so it will be there whether we know it or not, but we can open that up to you as much as you like, or as little as you like. Well, there will be theories, there will be talking about methodologies and about ethics, but it will be very, very hands-on. Good question. Thank you. Thank you. Great questions. Thank you. I'm really liking these. Any more? Rabina Aslam, you normally have questions if you're still here. Maybe not. Any more? Do it, yeah, really explore that website. There's lots to be found there, including really generous comments by previous participants that heartwarming in their generosity and excitement about the data schools, and they tell you a lot about what the data schools are like, the comments that people have made. There must be some other questions. Natural language processing only in a tiny amount, Iris. I'll look a little bit critically at sentiment analysis, but not it's not the focus of the course, but there'll be a little bit in my Python course, and others may touch upon it briefly, but that's not the focus of this. Maybe a little bit, and of course, if you were interested in analysing documents to create stories, then we might suggest doing different types of natural language processing, but it's not the focus of this course. But it could be something, if you bring an interest to it, that you could bring to this. That's the other thing. You might use natural language processing to create new stories or poems or new ways of understanding a text which haven't been investigated before. So it's a great question, and we can certainly point you to other resources. Can two people apply as a team? Yes, for sure. What issues generating Gen A's impact on culture? Absolutely. In fact, Safir's course, his first module, is all about what he discovered in terms of the colonial nature of representation embedded in generative AI when he tried to represent Bangladeshi cultural heritage through generative AI and found that it was very limited in its ability to do that. My research has been around many of these issues, so there's certainly conversations to be had about that. We will approach generative AI critically. Is there a chance to get a sense of the cohort's interests as participants early on? Hello, Adam. Great to see you again. Hope you're doing well. Early on, we'll right off in the first day, participants will very lightly and enjoyably present who they are through images, and you'll spend a lot of the time talking to other people and finding out about them. As Karen said, it's a huge part of the school, right from the first day. It would be interesting to try and do it even earlier than that. We might work out if there is a way to do that, if that's what you meant, before the course starts. What you'll find is that an amazing variety of people, not only their professions, but where they're located, what stage of life they're at in terms of their interest, from PhD students to people who've been curating for decades. So it'll be very varied for sure. Hope that answered your question, Adam. Thank you. Good to see you, if only to see your initials. Good. Okay.
Just to let you know, we're nearly at the end of the session, so if anybody has got any other questions, perhaps just ask a final one now.
Yeah, you can always write to us as well. You'll see the email on the site.
Absolutely.
Good, really good questions. Thank you. Very useful for everyone. So far, applicants have been very varied. A really good range of people from galleries, museums, artists, some PhD students investigating cultural heritage by practice. Really varied, as are the staff on the course as well. Didn't have time to talk about the constituent data school, opportunities for publishing that we're going to embed into all the data schools, as well as hopes for a conference at some point later in 2026, which all participants in the school will be invited to take part in. That's an exciting new development. Any more questions? Am I missing? Yeah, thank you, Sophie's put the email in. Can you lead the process application step by step? If you go onto the website, you'll find, if you go to Cambridge Digital Humanities, Cambridge Data School, when is payment due, Karen? Good question.
So when you put the application in, once we give you 7 days to accept the place, and then we ask for payment within 14 days, and that's working days, so we don't include weekends.
Yeah. Thank you. I think it's all on the website. If you look up Cambridge Digital Humanities and then Data Schools, thank you again, Adam, you'll see all this information. You might have to hunt around.
Have a look at the related links.
Yeah,
it's got
anyway,
on the
Thank you.
If you're looking on a
Staying in
mobile
touch
device
after
at the bottom of the screen.
Sorry, thank you. Ways to stay in touch. Absolutely, we encourage people staying in touch, and this idea of the constituent data school will encourage further conferences as well as publishing together and continuing to develop our interests and research together as a community. Absolutely. Thank you. Yeah, that's the idea of the constituent data school, is that it's the body of people who've taken part at all sorts of different stages, been going on for 6 or 7 years. That's what the constituency is. So you'll be invited to take part in publications as well as conferences. Watch this space. It's something I'm developing right now as we speak almost. But no, I am fully focused here. Thank you. Great question. Okay. Well, thank you very much. As Karen said, write to us, grab that email. It's in the chat. It's on the website. Sorry, Sophie put it in the chat. I'll re-put it in the chat. If you have further questions, if anything wasn't answered or you didn't think of your question during the session, you can use those emails to get in touch with us. Thank you. Thank you very much, Sophie and Karen. Much appreciated.
I look forward to seeing your applications.